One of the roughest sailing communication tasks a manager or leader can have is constructive confrontation. I have an agreement with someone. They break the agreement. I've reminded them they're still breaking the agreement, and I need to have reckoning time. I need to be straight with that person with straight talk about a pattern of non-performance. Or maybe it's one time the person blew it, but what they're doing is so egregious, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't sit down with them for a serious you and me discussion. Now, a lot of people rate constructive confrontation right up there with walking on crushed glass as far as their favorite activities. They avoid it due to their fear about the defensive, emotional, predictable reactions. I push you with my message, my confrontation and straight talk. The person pushes back with a fight or flight response. Maybe they're crying. Maybe they're silent. Maybe they just are defeated. Maybe they don't have words. Maybe they start crying and maybe they guilt trip. Well, poor me. They play victim. Or maybe it's a fight response, yelling, screaming, threatening. They want to go to the boss. They claim discrimination. They blame other people. Whatever the fight or flight response is, that's a pushback response to my push. And as a manager, oftentimes we get hooked into pushing back, and now we have not a dialogue, but a duologue. In fact, we often have a volunteer come in front of a class when we teach straight talk skills, and we'll say, I'm going to put my hand against yours, and you just do what comes naturally, and immediately we start pushing. Well, they push back, and they push back, and so we start pushing, and it escalates, and then we gradually let up the pressure, and they let up on their pushing. And we ask them some questions that reveal the truth about defensiveness when we confront. We say, did you calculate what you were going to do when you pushed back, when I pushed you? Were you sitting there thinking, let's see, Rick is pushing against me, so I need to exert a weight and mass equal or greater to the density of the mass and force that he's exerting so I'll tense my muscles. The person, of course, says, no, it just happened. It's automatic. It's second nature. That's the first thing about the psychological truth about defensiveness. They're not calculating this crazy response. They're not strategizing and trying to be deceitful or manipulative all the time. It's just an automatic response. Don't you sometimes get defensive when someone confronts you? Even though you know they're right, we get defensive. Because when it comes to handling confrontation or getting corrective feedback, sometimes we get emotional. It's not a logical response. It's no different than the caveman. It's emotional protection from perceived threat or loss. Just like that caveman, when a saber-toothed tiger comes in the cave, whoa, fight or flight. Blood is going to my arms, my legs, to my extremities to equip me for flight or fight. What's the one place where no oxygen is going? My brain. And it's the same in modern times. While I'm beautifully equipped to get out of there or to fight, I'm not well equipped for rational problem solving and non-defensive working through of the issue. So how do we want to handle this universal, automatic, non-logical, but emotional tendency to push back when we feel threatened or there's perceived threat or loss? First, the best action when someone's emotional and the pipes are clogged with emotion, called defensiveness, is to not push back. And we ask that volunteer who's done the push back activity, what happened when I stopped pushing you? Immediately they say, I stopped pushing. We give up control in order to stay in control. So instead of fighting back, what are you talking about with that defensive response? We paraphrase their emotions. You really sound steamed at me. As you see it, it's like, I don't care about our friendship anymore, the fact that I'm holding you accountable for this commitment. Yeah, you're darn right. I want to actually help them say what they're feeling and thinking, even if it's crazy, because they're out of their minds at that moment. They're in their guts, not in their brains. They're in their emotion, viscerally. So what I want to do is what I call apply the interpersonal Drano to unclog those pipes by paraphrasing their thoughts and feelings. It doesn't mean I agree with it, and I will take my turn to speak my piece in response to the defense. But first, let's hear it. You know, the metaphor of this is instead of pushing back like boxing, it's more like judo, the Eastern martial arts. I go with the energy of the enemy. Not that you're my enemy when I confront. You know what I mean. Or fishing. Anyone who's gone fishing, the fish is pulling the line. You give it more line. You don't fight it right away. You give it line. You give up control in order to stay control. or taming a wild stallion in the many years growing up on the ranch in St. Louis. Of course not. But my friends in Texas tell me if you want to tame a wild stallion, you don't get a bit and saddle and throw it on it. You ride bareback and gradually blend your energy in. That's what we're doing by managing our self-talk to treat that defensive reaction with the psychological truth of what it means. It's not logical. It's simply that defensive, universal, emotional protection response. So I don't want to say, why is he lying to me? I can't believe it, because that's what's going to come out of my mouth. Don't you lie to me. I want to say there's his predictable defensive response. He's feeling threatened. And then I can do what I know I need to do, which is to listen down that feeling of threat. You're really worried about what's going to happen here. I get that. The person says yes. I listen down the defense to the yes. That doesn't mean the person is saying, yes, Rick, you're right. I'm sorry I did it. It means, yes, Rick, you've accurately paraphrased my emotions. You've accurately unclogged my pipes. And then, of course, I pause to make sure it's yes, period, versus yes, and furthermore, I'm also feeling mad about such and such. So I'll change my self-talk. I'll listen down to the yes. Then I'll pause and refocus on the issue at hand and bring you back from that defensiveness. Respond to it or set it aside. I hope that these reminders about the psychological truth versus the literal truth of the words in one's defensiveness will help you to not be part of the problem and escalate a conflict, but to be part of the solution. Because let's face it, my mama said years ago, remember, it takes two to tango.